Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name is Olivier Choron. I'm the UK General Manager at Impartner, and I'm delighted to talk to you today about our product news on demand. And I'm even more delighted to have with me on the call Eric Owen, Project Manager at Autodesk. Eric is going to talk about how Autodesk roll out our news on demand platform. But before we start that, and before I even do an introduction, I also wanted to remind you that as part of this webinar, we'll be, of course, answering questions. So if you have the opportunity, please use the questions panel, and we'll look at all your questions at the end and try to answer everything we can. We're also going to try to make this webcast short. We know you're all very busy, so we'll try to stay within the 45 minutes we were allocated. Let me start the discussion. First of all, Eric, welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
And so I just start by saying, giving a bit of an introduction about Impartner. We see ourselves as the global leader in pure play PRM, partner relationship management. For those who don't know what that stands for. With a very large customer base as a result and as a proof point, with most active partners, larger customer base, and the most industry awards. We believe and we think we deliver industry-leading ROI. We have a huge breadth of products when it comes to PRM, whether you're looking at deal registration, integration with Salesforce, or Microsoft Dynamics. We think we are very simple to use as a platform. We've been used and recommended by many companies worldwide, and typically in the IT sector, but in other sectors too. As I'm going to show you on the next slide, a lot of customers are putting their faith in us and letting us deploy their PRM solutions. Very delighted to be representing Impartner today. For those who probably know, I used to run Tremolo Software, and we were acquired on June this year. So delighted to be here today, but really I'll go straight in and talk about what we're here to discuss today, and that's the news on demand platform that we provide today to customers globally. And I'm going to keep it very short, but I need to give you that introduction before I let Eric go through the material he wanted to present today. To start with, and we're going to start with the end result. What is news on demand, and what does it delivers? It delivers very personalized, very targeted newsletters and communications to your channel partners. And you see here a number of examples of newsletters that we either are sending or are enabling our customers to send or have designed for you. And these newsletters have something in common and something very unique. Not only do they have their own headers and footers that can be personalized for each of our customers, of course, but what it enables and what it does, it enables those articles which you see here in different shape and forms, with images, no images, images on the top, images on the right, to be delivered dynamically to each recipient based on two things. One, the content restriction that you set article by article. And what I mean by that is, if you look at these middle newsletters, I may, as a recipient, have received these because I'm a UK partner of certain type, say gold, and maybe that article was made just for UK partners with gold status. But I may also receive these newsletters because I am a partner, full stop, and this article may have been restricted to a group of users, to all global partners. So these newsletters are very special. They are very dynamic. They are using content restrictions at a article by article level set by our customers. The second thing that's very important, which I'll show you, is those articles I'm receiving them because I wanted to receive them. I wanted to receive things about those topics. I wanted to receive that newsletter with that content, let's say on a Thursday, because I wanted it on a weekly basis versus monthly basis, and I will show you that. So news on demand enables what? It enables the mixing of content restrictions set by you, the supplier, and preferences set by your audience. And that's very unique. And what it enables the dynamic creation of newsletters, which, by the way, I've never seen any HTML editing by any email marketers because it's all been done dynamically. It enables you to dynamically serve personalized, targeted content to your audience in as many languages for as many different partner types, partner tiers, countries, and language options you have globally. And again, all dynamically. So no one has sat down behind the email marketing engine to physically create those newsletters. Those newsletters have been creating completely dynamically. And they've been formatted also dynamically. And you see here, as a customer of ours, you can change the header, the footer, whether you want some sections or not. And here on your right-hand side, you see there's a lot of sections enabled, different logos, formats, font colors, image size, image format, text format, and section formats. All of these can be customized. It's customized, it's set, and on regular interval, newsletters are sent dynamically to your recipients. So how does it really work? It works by using these two things. First of all, I'm showing you back-end screen here on the top left. This is what we call groups. You can create any groups of users dynamically based on some parameters that you set, and you can set it for as many combinations and data points you have. You could create a group of users for APAC of a partner type, let's say VARs, with a partner tier called Gold. Or you could create another one for EMEA distributors. So this is what you see here, groups. We enable you to create groups, as many groups as you want. You can use once or multiple times without having to redo them every time. We call them dynamic groups. And this is what we use to target that content, to restrict that content. And here what you see on the bottom right is a very different view. This is a view that your recipients have, which is their communications preferences. And you can see we do something a bit different. Not only can they select what topic they're interested in, and this could be as customized and as big as you want it to be. They could select topic one by one, opt in and out of any one of those. But we also enable them to create preferences in terms of how frequently they want their newsletters and their content to be served. And they cannot just do that at a newsletter level, i.e., do I want my newsletter weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly? We allow them to segment and to make those choices at a type of topic level. And this is very important. This means, for instance, a salesperson may decide to receive sales news weekly or even daily, but may decide to not receive daily news for technical news. They may decide to completely ignore technical news. They may decide to get a monthly update for technical news. So the system takes into account all these preferences that can be done extremely at a very granular level. By the way, you don't have to do that. You could make it a lot simpler than that. Okay. Do I want my newsletters on a monthly or weekly basis? Here, we give the option to go far deeper in terms of their preferences. For your information, we can also default these settings based on the job title, for instance, or job types of those users. So you may say salespeople get sales news and marketing news on a weekly basis. Technical people get technical news on a weekly basis, and vice versa. So these two options are the options that drive news on demand. And you have the simple task in this very simple WYSIWYG editor to put your title for your news, your article, your call to action, your image. You can decide where you want the image. You can decide it if you want it on the top, on the left, no image. You can decide what filter you select, and those filters are the filters that your partners can select in and out of. You can select which section it goes under, which group it's for, i.e. what restrictions you want to put in place. You can select all of this, and of course, you can test. And this is here the real example of this article I've created today. And essentially, Once that content has been created, article by article, you don't have to wait for all of your content to be ready on the 15th of the month for your monthly newsletter. You can literally publish content as and when it comes and schedule it to go as and when it's approved. What's very important about news on demand and this kind of approach is that you can really decentralize the content creation process by enabling as many content contributors as you want to create content in a platform. By the way, you can also centralize it if your organizations work like that, or you can use a mix of both. You could have corporate news created and loaded in the system by your corporate team and enabling your local team to create local content for local territories. You can also centralize or decentralize the approval process. You could, if you wanted to, say all English content I'm going to approve centrally for all parts of the world. Or what you could do is give the power, the ultimate power of approving that content before it goes out to your local regional teams. And they themselves in their funnel of news could see local and corporate news combined. And when I talk about funnel, you can look at the screen on the bottom right here. That funnel is what we call a queue. Every article, once it's been created, approved, translated, and finally approved by your local teams maybe, gets put into this funnel, all of these articles. And the system will take those items and will send newsletters automatically formatted by the system to the right audience at the right time, whether they've selected daily, weekly, or monthly. By the way, we can make the complex a lot bigger. We can or more complex. We can ask extra loops, extra approval loops. Okay, we can ask maybe your finance team to approve content if your content is critical. Maybe we can ask your legal team or your corporate team to review that content before it's sent. What's also very important is we allow translation agencies to log in the system. They'll receive notification every time there's something to translate. They'll be given the option to translate that content before they themselves send it for final approval. So this is how news on demand works. You create content article by article. It follows the workflow that you've decided, whether it has to go through legal, finance, corporate, translation, or final approval. And the engine will take all these articles and essentially serve them to the partner. And we go back here to the end result, where you see on the left-hand side newsletters that are very targeted. But what we also do is that same content we can fit into our news portal, which can be integrated into your partner portal, or we can actually feed that content directly into your partner portal. Again, following the same kind of dynamism and targeting that we've been using. Here, partners will be able to see archived articles, they'll be able to search through them, they'll be able to filter through them, and essentially they will never lose that information you've passed to them. Now, really, of course, and I'm not going to go through that, we can give you stats for each article. So how many people have been sent that article, how many still waiting for that article, because maybe today they're still waiting for the monthly newsletter to come out, while some have already received it. We'll tell you how many clicks, opens you've generated article by article for your newsletter. And of course, we'll tell you also the number of views and clicks through your web portal. So that's how news on demand works. Now, what I'd like to do is hand over to Eric to have him explain how Autodesk has leveraged news on demand with their partner community worldwide. Eric, over to you.
Great, thanks, Olivier. So to introduce myself again, my name is Eric Owen. I'm the project manager at Autodesk for our global partner communications within our worldwide field operations group. And I'm responsible for making sure that our partners are aware of the latest news from Autodesk and we can stay in touch with them, and they're always receiving the information that they need to. If you want to go to the next slide, before I get started too much, I'll introduce you to who Autodesk is in case you haven't heard of us before. So if you've ever driven a high-performance car, admired a towering skyscraper, used a smartphone, or watched a great film, chances are you've probably experienced what millions of Autodesk customers are doing with our software. With Autodesk, we give our customers the power to make anything. We offer the most comprehensive portfolio of design, engineering, and fabrication software, cross-industry insights, and communities of dreamers, creators, and innovators. And part of our partners are an integral part of this mission. Depending on the geo in different parts of the world, it's a little different, but our partners are responsible for between 50 and 75% of our revenue. And as you can imagine, that's very important for us to make sure that our partners are aware of what's going on at Autodesk. We're on the kind of the tail end right now of a massive business model transition, where we've moved from selling perpetual licenses to selling our software as a subscription. So that has been a massive change for us within Autodesk, and it's also a massive change for our partners in that they've had to go through that business model transition with us. And so it's really important for us to be able to communicate with our partners and make sure that they're aware of new promotions and new policies and all that kind of thing that goes along with a big transition like this. Our partners, also to give you some background, are going through a lot of change with this due to our business model transition. Some of our partner models are changing. There's a lot of consolidation within our partner organizations. We have new partners coming on board that might be focused on different areas. We are bringing on partners who are, experts in cloud and asking them to do more consulting than just selling our software. So there's really a lot of change in the making for our partners, and that makes it really important for us to be able to communicate well with them. Next slide, please. So our newsletter that we send out we call it Channel News. And before we moved to News on Demand, it was sent out weekly in 13 different editions in 9 different languages. We have a weekly production cycle of about 10 to 20 articles are submitted every week. And it really is our primary source of partner news. We really don't send out very many one-off emails, and we really try to just funnel everything into Channel News. Autodesk is in a kind of a unique situation compared to some other partner companies out there, in that most of our current partners are very engaged with Autodesk. So even though we are sending out weekly newsletters with, quite a few articles, so the newsletters can get pretty long, we still had pretty good engagement rates with our partners, because many of our partners sell only Autodesk solutions, and so they are more engaged than maybe some of your partners might be. But it's still important for us to make sure they have a good experience and improve the way we're communicating with them. So on the next slide, I'll talk about a little bit about the problem that we're hoping to solve before moving to News on Demand. And the biggest kind of problems for us that we were trying to solve is some of the internal process and internal flow. The old system we had very many manual steps that involved a lot of copying and pasting and creating room for manual error. We used, I think, 4 to 5 different tools. We had a submission form where people could submit their articles that was housed in SharePoint, and then that was copied and pasted kind of field by field into a Word document to create a newsletter draft, which was then sent out for review via email, and then forwarded to our translation agency also via email. They came back with multiple Word documents with the newsletter translated into these 8 other languages. And those were sent out for review. Those were also then sent back to me via email, then forwarded to our production company, who built each of these 13 emails individually in Marketo, which was the tool that our marketing department uses and we were leveraging for channel communications. And then the newsletters are sent out, and then they were archived by creating PDFs of those newsletters and saving them on one of our partner portals built on Sabo. So there was just a lot of kind of manual work, as you can imagine, a lot of copying and pasting, lots of room for error, lots of necessity to kind of recheck the content at every step to make sure that, stuff was getting copied and pasted correctly, links were still working, formatting looked good, all that kind of thing. So we did send out 13 editions, which to some may seem like a lot, but it still gave us very limited personalization because those editions were mostly based on just geo and language. So we only had the option, for instance, to send a newsletter to everyone in EMEA who speaks German. And so if there was someone who needed to communicate out to that group, we could put an article in that newsletter, but if the article wasn't necessarily relevant for all those people, we would either have the option of sending it to all or not sending it at all and doing something else. As I mentioned before, we do get a lot of content every week and the newsletters can get very long. And so we're looking for a solution that would help us kind of tailor that a little bit and not bombard partners with information that's not relevant to them and let them focus on what really is. And we also had a rigid process. So if any of you guys are in channel marketing, which I'm sure you are, or any kind of role similar to mine where you're communicating with partners, I'm sure you know that you often get asked to kind of do things last minute, and your stakeholders and content contributors don't necessarily realize what goes into the process. And with our old process, it was really difficult to kind of make those last minute changes, because if there was an article that needed pulled or edited or added at the last minute, it really impacted the whole newsletter, and we had to, kind of call in special favors and retest the entire newsletter, etc. And we also have a need to scale for the future. So I mentioned in a previous slide that that we're kind of looking toward bringing new types of partners on board, partners that may not be similar to our current partners in that they're not, so familiar with Autodesk and with our solutions, and they're maybe selling other solutions. And so we really needed a solution that would allow us to scale for those partners, that when they come on board, we'd be able to send them targeted news and not bombard them with stuff that's not relevant to them because they might have a different business model, etc. So on the next slide, I'll talk about the solution that we found, which is obviously News on Demand. This is a screenshot here of our News on Demand portal, where our partners can come in, view archived articles, update their communication preferences, and view the latest articles as well. And so this system that we implemented was really good for us because it was comprehensive. I mentioned the 5 or 6 different tools that we used before with all the copying and pasting. With News on Demand, we were able to consolidate that into one tool. So everything from initial submission all the way through to archiving is all done within the platform. The articles never need to be kind of copied and pasted between systems or anything like that. So that's been really great for us. The flexibility is also really great. So I mentioned in the problem section that the issue we had with kind of the rigid process, whereas this, now that we're able to manage each article individually, it's really easy for me to pull an article that needs pulled or edit a single article and retest it and make sure it looks good without having to worry about the entire newsletter. And we also appreciated that this tool was really purpose-built for channel communication. So there's lots of tools out there, lots of different ways to communicate with partners, and a lot of them maybe could do a lot of the same stuff, but it would require a lot of custom building, development, and kind of work on the back end to kind of make it work the way this tool does. And it's really nice that this tool is kind of built with channel partners in mind first, because a lot of those other tools that we've used in the past, or that I've even used at other companies, are more built for just customer marketing first, and then you can kind of make it work for channel communication. So it was great to be able to work with a partner who really understands the channel, understands the unique challenges of working with partners and how that's different from end user customers, and how you need to be able to segment the news by by partner tier, by role, by geo, by language, etc. And we also found Impartner to be a really good vendor partner. It's been really great working with them, and they've been really great working with us to kind of customize the tool and set it up to really work for how we needed it to work. And so that's been really beneficial in our implementation and getting people on board internally and continuing to delight our partners. And so the next slide, I'll talk about the results of what happened. So we launched a pilot for about 3 or 4 months, and then we've been on full implementation for all of our partners for about the last 2 months or so. And so far it's been going really well. Our newsletters are by far much more targeted because, as Olivier mentioned, you can target articles individually based on both the profile information that we have on a partner as well as their preferences. We've already had nearly 700 partner users have visited the preferences page, so we know that they're coming in and actually setting their preferences. And even if they're not, we are able to kind of set default preferences for them based on their profile, based on their role and industry information that we already have on them. So hopefully we're already sending out more targeted newsletters even if they haven't come in to visit the preferences page. But we've seen that a lot of partners have visited that page and given us more information about the type of news they want to receive, and we're able to accommodate that in an automated fashion. We also have been able to move to faster publication, which is kind of amazing because we already had streamlined the process as much as possible. As I mentioned before, everyone always wants their article published right away, and so we are under a lot of pressure internally from our stakeholders elsewhere in the organization to kind of get articles out as quickly as possible. And through moving to this tool where everything is kind of on the same tool and notifications go out automatically to people when they have stuff to do. So our translators get notifications as soon as there's an article to translate. They can start on stuff early if articles are submitted early instead of waiting for the whole newsletter at one time. We've been able to shorten our lead time by up to 3 days for translated articles, and it's sometimes even more than that. We've had articles go through, within a day sometimes if it's really urgent. We can ask for special favors from individual approvers to kind of, move that stuff through really quickly. Also, a lot more flexibility. Obviously, we used to send out 13 different editions every week, and now we send out literally hundreds of different editions every week. I was curious on how many editions we sent, and just looking at our individual users' different preferences that they've set up and their segmentation, not even including actually the segmentation that we can do by country, language, geo, role, industry, and partner type. Just based on their profiles, there's already 250 different kind of combinations that are in the system. So we went from sending 13 newsletters every week to sending literally hundreds based on our partner preferences. And again, to Olivier's point before, no one's actually building those hundreds of newsletters. We're just building an individual article, and then the system is intelligently pushing that out to the people who need to receive it at the time that they want to receive it. And we've also, with that more flexibility idea, we are also able to target much more granular audiences than we used to. So we've already sent over 50 articles in the time that since we've started, which is about 13% of the total articles we've sent have been sent to audiences that we never were able to target before. An example is we have a group now called EMEA Mature, so we can send articles only to our partners in the mature region of our Europe, Middle East, and Africa region, instead of sending to all of them, which we used to have to do. So we used to have to kind of send articles with little notes and saying, this only applies to EMEA Mature, and our emerging markets would still get those articles and just have to ignore them. So now we're able to actually target those newsletters to the people who want to receive them and not bother the people who don't want them. We also have much better visibility into the process. It's easier to kind of check on an individual article as needed and see where things are in the process, you know, where it's at, who we're waiting on for approval to move to the next step, who it's been sent to, who it's in the queue for and not sent to yet. And much better metrics have been available, which is awesome. We, of course, in the past, we've looked at metrics, but kind of the easiest metric to get with other tools is just kind of open and click rates for the newsletter as a whole, which is, you know, it's interesting. It gives some information, but it was really hard for us to tell in the past which articles within that newsletter were really driving that engagement. And now that each article is handled individually, it's really easy to just go and pull a report and find out which articles are individually generating the most clicks, and not have to kind of, you know, do manual work and manual reporting and stuff like that to try to figure it out. It's just kind of right there at our fingertips. This article you see on the screen is an example of one of our top most engaging articles. I'm not sure how many of you guys speak Chinese, but this article was sent out globally, translated into multiple languages, and but through the reporting, we were able to tell that, you know, this Chinese version specifically generated a lot of clicks and really, you know, engaged the audience there. So it's insights like this that we can now easily pull, and it can help us make decisions and you know, about what types of articles our partners are interested in, and it also gives some interesting stuff. Like this article, for example, was actually near the bottom of the newsletter. And, you know, in the past, a lot of times you would assume if you had a good newsletter with high click rates or high open rates, it's probably the first couple articles that were being read. And, you know, and then our submitters are always kind of trying to get their articles up to the top. But with metrics like this, I can definitively point to, I can say, no, you know, as long as your content is engaging and relevant, our partners really are scrolling through the whole newsletter and looking for stuff that's interesting to them. So that's, you know, really good insight as well. You can go on to the next slide. I've gotten really good feedback from my stakeholders. So we have a lot of people who have been at Autodesk for a long time and have been submitting articles for channel news a long time. And I really got nothing but positive feedback. You can read some of the quotes here from some of my submitters, and you can see it's really really gone over well, and people are really impressed with the new functionality, the ease of use. We did, you know, require all of our submitters, which I have a list of about 200 content contributors throughout the company, so it's definitely a large group of varying backgrounds, you know, from all different organizations, from our channel strategy and programs teams, to marketing, to operations, to, you know, all the people who need to communicate with partners for different reasons. And yeah, many of them have been submitting articles for a long time, and you know, so it's understandable that they might not want to have taken an hour-long training for a new tool, but I really didn't get any complaints about that, and people were really impressed and really understood why we were making the change, and really appreciated the ability to easily submit news, easily target it to the people they want to target it to, etc. And onto the last slide here for me is kind of what's next. So I'm always looking for, you know, ways to continue improving, continue building on our success. And so these are kind of the next steps that I'm looking toward in our channel communications here at Autodesk. My next step is working with Impartner to further our data automation so that we get less manual work in making sure we have updated partner information in the tool. We're working on automating the data flow from Salesforce, where our partner data is held, to Impartner, so that we always have up-to-date information. I've also been sharing this solution, a presentation similar to what I just gave you, within Autodesk, because it's been generating interest, and there's actually other groups that are interested in maybe using this tool for communicating internally with our employees, or even maybe possibly some kind of targeted customer communications based on you know, the products that our customers have purchased, because we do have a lot of a large selection of products and a lot of different industries. So it's interesting to be able to communicate with customers based on the products and industries that they're in. We're also looking forward to the mobile app that's coming on the roadmap to give our partners, a different way to consume our news. We already do offer the option for our partners to receive news daily so they can get news up to date, and some partners have opted for that, and so a mobile app will kind of be the next step in that, to where they can really get real-time news as soon as it's available and approved, instead of waiting for a weekly newsletter in their email if they want. Also looking at integrating news on demand and our channel communications further with our partner portal built on Salesforce Communities. We're hoping to be able to show news articles right there on the homepage, so when people log in, maybe that's another way they want to consume news. Instead of getting a newsletter in the email, maybe they want to log into the portal and do it right there where they're already going anyway to submit orders and stuff like that. And then also out in the further future, looking for opportunities to create more triggered automated partner communications. So we'd like to be able to send newsletters or articles or emails based on partner actions. Maybe they took a training and we want to take a follow-up thanking them or suggesting the next training, or maybe we want to notify a partner in an automated fashion that that they're a little bit behind on their attainment for the quarter or something like that. So these are just some ideas that we're working on, and excited for the possibilities of the future. I think that wraps up my slides. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Eric. I mean, fabulous. I mean, to be fair, I've learned something new today as well. So I'm going to let you catch your breath. We've got a lot of questions, so I'm going to go through them. I'm going to call them out, Eric, but I'm going to try to answer some of those for you right now. So have a glass of water. Someone is asking a question, how many languages is the platform currently supporting? I mean, right now, Autodesk are translating everything in 7 languages. So out of English, we have French, German, Italian, Spanish, Russian, Japanese, Korean, and Chinese. But really, we can support as many languages as you'd like, as long as you have the translation budget. To cope with that. But as Eric said, the passing of information through the system, the addition of or the enabling of translators to go and edit the content and in the different languages they've been asked to do is done via the system. Eric, I'm going to leave you again for one more. Someone is saying, are you considering integrations with companies like SmartLink? Those companies provide an automated process to translate, not automated translations, but an automated process to translate. And I can confirm we're looking at an integrations whereas the articles that are being in this scenario, for instance, in the case of Autodesk, are being created on the platform, would be passed dynamically to, let's say, a SmartLink account you may have, and once translated, either manually, automatically by SmartLink and the translators coming back straight into the system. So for those interested, yes, this is something we are considering. Right, now, Eric, I hope you've got your breath and you're ready. Let me ask you a question. First of all, what kind of feedback did you get from your partners?
That's a good question. So we haven't yet done any kind of surveys yet. This is still pretty new. I haven't gotten a ton of directed feedback on the new tool from my partners. We did really work hard to make the look and feel of the newsletter look the same as it was before, because we had recently done a rebranding and we were happy with how it looked. So we really made it to where the impact to our partners was actually really light, and but just giving them more options for coming into the portal and kind of setting up their preferences if they want to. So I unfortunately don't have much kind of direct feedback from our partners to share, but I will say that our partners are very vocal, and if they don't like something, they let us know, and I haven't received much of that, so it's kind of a no news is good news at this point. And then in the future we probably will do kind of a survey once we've been in place for a little longer and kind of get more direct feedback.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. I've got a tough questions. I've got a few tough questions here. Eric, this one is for
All right.
you. How did you guys justify the cost of a different platform for news? Obviously, you mentioned you were using Marketo and manual process. What did you use before, and how did you justify the change and the cost?
Sure. Yeah. So for us, the cost was very comparable to what it was costing us as an organization, at least. Because before we were using Marketo, but that was kind of paid for by our marketing organization. We just kind of piggyback on them, but we still had to pay for a production agency to produce our newsletters. And now with News on Demand, we've kind of shifted that budget to paying for the licensing fees because we no longer need those production resources because this tool makes it really easy for the content contributors to come in and create their articles right in a WYSIWYG editor. So we don't really need that production because they can see what their articles look like. The tool makes it easy and kind of makes it foolproof for um, our submitters to create the articles without needing to know HTML, without really being able to break anything. And then it's done. The article that they see is the same way it's going to look in the newsletter. So from a cost perspective, it was pretty easy to justify that way. Just kind of in general, justifying the change. As I mentioned, we communicate by far the majority with our partners through our newsletter. So it was really, that's kind of the vehicle we were already using. And so we were already getting a lot of requests for greater personalization. People were wanting to send out articles to a specific group that we didn't necessarily already have a newsletter for. And so this was a really kind of easy sell it from that perspective because it kind of gave people everything that they were looking for, which was definitely not possible in our other systems without putting a lot more resources on it and kind of building custom solutions.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to take the next one. Someone asked, can this be used for customer newsletters or employee newsletters? So I'm going to first make a comment that there are situations where nurturing campaigns are required, okay? And I'll be the first to say that systems such as Marketo or maybe Loqua are systems that are absolutely excellent for that kind of behavior and activity. However, once you have an employee or a customer, or as we see here, a partner on board, I think it's less about nurturing, it's more about communications to the kind of targeting level that we can afford and allow. So I'll also answer, we've had customers before using News on Demand for employee communications. And I know right now we are in discussions with a number of companies looking at customer communications as well. So nothing, it's not, this tool is not focused on just partner communication, but it can be employed elsewhere. Okay. Right. Eric, you ready for another one?
Yeah.
Okay. Someone says, sounds like the interface is simple to use. Is it simple to use? Is the process, the workflow simple to use? Have you had to change much?
Yeah, it is simple to use. It's also very configurable, I would say. So, um, in the beginning when we were launching, I worked a lot with Olivier and his team on kind of thinking through how we wanted it to get set up. And that part, it kind of takes a little bit of thinking and is not necessarily so simple just because of how many different options there are and how complicated, our own kind of system is and, all the different partner levels and languages and roles and all that kind of stuff. So we kind of really had to think through how we wanted to set it up with the different content categories and sections, et cetera. But I think we've come up with a solution that works really well. And Olivia and his team were really helpful in that and kind of imparting their knowledge of giving us best practices on how to do that. And so now for the content contributors, it is pretty simple. Our form is a little bit long, but probably a little shorter than it used to be. And that's just because we needed to give them so many options. But it could obviously be simplified if your organization doesn't need as many options. And it is really easy to use. It's just, scroll down, easy, select the type of, information you need for your article, create your article in a nice WYSIWYG editor. They can just type right in there, and the font and color is all correct. We even added easy buttons where they can just click a drop down and insert like a call to action button. We have 2 different styles that they can do, where they can just enter their link in the text, and then it just kind of formats it so that everything looks the same. And then I just, as the admin, just kind of give a quick review of it and kind of correct anything that's out of place, but that usually doesn't take me more than a couple minutes per article. So yeah, it is pretty easy to use.
Thank you very much, Eric. I know we've passed the 45 minutes deadline, but we're going to carry on a bit more. There's a few more questions, so let me answer a couple that relate to Impartner. The first one is someone says, does a preference page come back into Impartner for segmentation purposes? The answer is obviously not today. We've just been acquired, but that's clearly is part of the roadmap. Yes, so a full integration in terms of the data, full integration in terms of the news portal element of what we've shown you today. So yes, we will be working on that, and I'm sure as Impartner we'll produce a roadmap and share that with our customers. Someone else asking again the question, is there an integration with Pardot? If the rest of marketing is using that, we need to be passing information between the system. We have done integrations with a number of systems there, maybe where the unsubscribe information or the news preferences, for instance, are shared with all the marketing systems. So the answer is yes on that one. And of course, we need to look on case-by-case basis. Eric, I'm not going, there's a tough one here. And the question is, as the use of news on demand at Autodesk help increase revenue from the partners? Now, do you know that? Can you track that?
I don't know that. I will say that our main focus and the main big wins that we had were actually more on the internal side. So that's what I'm really focusing on. As I mentioned, we already had a pretty good partner experience with our old newsletter in terms of readership and stuff like that. So for us, one of our goals as a company is to digitize the company and really kind of be smarter in the way we do business. And this really helped us kind of streamline those internal processes. So I think it does give us more options to be able to produce better newsletters with less resources. So from that perspective, it's probably a cost savings if you figured out kind of the time spent. As far as partner revenue, I don't have the data to correlate that right now.
Okay, thank you. I mean, I know it's a tough one. Sometimes the sales cycle is a bit longer than 5 seconds. So thank you very much for that. So let me address another one. Someone is asking, we don't have a lot of content at the moment, so they're not sure whether these solutions will be valid for them. I mean, Eric, you've now had plenty of experience there. I mean, do you think there is a minimum number of articles where a platform like this is justified?
I think that would probably depend on how you're communicating with partners today. I mean, there's a lot of things that come with it. So there's a portal where people can come in and view past articles and set their preferences and that kind of thing. I mean, if you're only sending, a couple articles per month, maybe not, maybe that's easy enough to do in just any kind of email tool if you already have one. But if it's more than that, and you can set the frequency of how often the newsletters go out. So, we were already doing weekly, so we defaulted most people to weekly and gave them the option of daily, or bi-weekly or monthly. But you definitely don't have to send them that often. You could just do monthly newsletters, and if you have any kind of need of segmenting your news and you want to be able to target your news to different groups, then I think that's where the news on demand tool really also adds a benefit, regardless of how much content you have. But if you just had like 1 or 2 articles that need to go out to everyone, then you could probably use anything for that.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, Eric, I would have answered that exactly that way. It's not necessarily about the amount of content, it's about how targeted you want to be with that content. And I think that's a very fair point there. Someone asking a question as well, and I'm going to start the answer, and Eric, please interrupt me if you want to say something different there. Someone saying, how often do you want to send? What's the frequency you want to put in place? And what changes do you see? So I've recently done some research as well on that one. Most customers we go to are doing monthly newsletters. Why? They're doing it monthly, newsletter monthly, because of the internal process that they have in place in terms of content gathering and then content publishing and translating and sending. So we always go back to customer and say, if you start a monthly, continue like that, but give subsets of that. So do weekly and bi-weekly and see what happens next. And I've recently done some research there. We clearly see open rate being far better for daily than weekly, than bi-weekly, than monthly. And essentially, if people are asking you to get daily news, that means they're vested interest in you, and they will be more likely to open and read your articles. And it goes on through that cycle. Those who want it weekly, lot of interest. Those who want bi-weekly or monthly, and again, remember what I said, you can set them those frequency by content types, and we see a decreasing open rate on that basis. What do you think, Eric? Do you think this is true?
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I agree. The last company I was at, we sent out monthly newsletters, and when I came here and to Autodesk and found out we were sending weekly newsletters, that was definitely out of the ordinary, and it was definitely a big burden for us internally, just because of that content generation process, where we're actually, before, we were kind of working on 2 newsletters at one time, because we'd be kind of still working on the content that was translated for the one going out next week, while we're getting in content for the one that goes out 2 weeks. So yeah, I agree. Monthly is probably more standard, and it's a great place to start. But to your point again, we sent out weekly newsletters so that when we moved to news on demand, we defaulted most users to get at least content that's relevant to their role on a weekly basis, and then gave them the option, right? So you don't have to impact what they're doing now. But I agree with you as well. We have given the option of daily. We haven't defaulted anyone to daily, but people have come in and changed their preference to daily, and we do see higher open rates for those, because again, those are the ones who are more engaged. They selected daily, so they're telling us they want to receive news daily, so it makes sense that they'd open it. And I think it's also easier for them to consume, right? If they open a newsletter every few days, they don't get a newsletter every day, because we don't necessarily have an article that publishes every day, but they'll get it when it's available, and usually it's going to be 1 or 2 articles in that newsletter. So it's actually easier for them to kind of be encouraged to open that newsletter and scan through it and look for information that's relevant to them, versus getting a weekly or a monthly newsletter with 10 to 20 articles that can be kind of daunting. So I think it's more encouraging for them to open if they know it's going to be short and targeted.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Eric. I think we've passed the 45 minutes deadline, but I think there's been a lot of great questions there. So thank you very much again, Eric, for what I think is a fabulous overview. If you guys on the call have a chance to review that presentation, it will be available as a recording. You have my details here on the bottom right of the screen. Eric, thank you very much for presenting today. And to everyone, I would like to leave you alone for the rest of the day. Enjoy your day, and thank you for having come on board, and I hope you found it interesting. So thank you very much.
Thank you.